Oregon recruiting has been an absolute freaking machine, dude, since Dan Lanning got there. And Dan Lanning plays a massive part of that. When it comes to the roster construction, Marshall Malchow is the man behind the curtain. If you don't know his name, he probably wants it that way. We'll unpack what the chief of staff for Oregon, essentially the general manager for Oregon, does and why Oregon is set up for success here for a very long time. Before we do that, though, GM All Access is powered by our friends over at Teamworks, baby. GM All Access powered by Teamworks. Win the revenue-sharing era with Teamworks General Manager. Purpose-built for collegiate athletics. Trusted by 99% of D1 NCAA institutions, Teamworks is uniquely designed by those who understand the challenges of college athletics, like a Marshall Malchow. Strategically allocate resources, optimize investments, evaluate your roster, and build championship-caliber teams all on one integrated platform. Check out teamworks.com/general-manager to learn more. So that ad where he talks about building championship caliber teams, Marshall Malchow has played a massive role in Oregon building to that, a massive role in them winning the Big Ten last year. He's going to play a massive role in Oregon ultimately hoisting a national championship trophy when it's all said and done for Dan Lanning and his time in Eugene. So like I said before this thing, he is truly the man behind the curtain. And people throw that reference out there. If you don't know what that's from, very old movie, The Wizard of Oz. I'm not talking Wicked. I'm talking like the OG Wizard of Oz. Starts out in black and white, then it goes to color as you move on throughout the entirety of the movie. But the Wizard of Oz, in that scene where they talk about the man behind the curtain, it's the wizard who's behind this machine, pulling strings, making things happen. But he says, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, going through this big, like a bullhorn, if you will. That's Marshall Malchow. Getting ready for this segment, I go on do a quick Google search of my guy and see different profiles of him and try to read the bio. My guy is off the grid. Go check out his bio over on Oregon's athletic website. The bio is blank. Okay, where else was he at? Georgia. Cool. Must have something on him from Georgia, right? Blank. Find my guy on LinkedIn. No profile picture. He is legitimately as off the grid gets, and I promise you he wants it that way. But there's an article out there from Ari Wasserman and Bruce Feldman when Ari was at The Athletic, and the profile is essentially, hey, what do peers say about you in the personnel world, and how do they perceive you in the personnel world? This is when Marshall Malchow was at Texas A&M, and the way that his peers spoke to him and what he was doing in that industry at that point in time, this is a couple years ago, talk about him being an elite evaluator, talk about him being an elite organizer. Everything that Oregon does right now, most of it goes through Marshall Malchow when it comes to their off-the-field side of things. And so I want to start there. Him being an elite evaluator, I think, is extremely important as it pertains to where Oregon's headed in the future, because Oregon now, as a organization, has elevated to a point where they are Tier 1 in college football. Don't take my word for it. Look at what last year was. They win the Big Ten, what I would say was the best conference in college football last year. They beat Ohio State, who ultimately ended up winning the national championship, and to call a spade here, boat raced Oregon when they played them in the college football playoff. They keep elevating. They've recruited now in the top 10 multiple times since Dan Lanning's been there. They are a Tier 1 organization. So when you get to Tier 1, it's not just about, do you have the 5 stars anymore? Do you have the best talent? Everyone in Tier 1 has the best talent. Where the Marshall Malchow effect comes into play here, the evaluation side, it comes to getting the right 5 stars, having a proper hit rate with the personnel you're bringing into your organization. That could be on the recruiting trail from the high school level. It could be via the portal. And based on what Oregon has done, they have had a tremendous hit rate on both sides of things. Talk about what they've done via the portal. I mean, the last 2 quarterbacks that have started for Oregon, Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, from the portal, fit in the system, Heisman finalists. Derek Harmon, guy they get via the portal. I believe it was even in the, I want to say it was the spring cycle he came to Oregon. Don't quote me on that. But he was a late addition to Oregon's roster. Ends up playing for them this past season, being a first-round draft pick. It's not just about money for Oregon. You can throw money at a problem. It doesn't guarantee that it solves it. Like Oregon, I talk about Tier 1. There's an article out there talking about Texas and how much they spend on their roster potentially in 2025. Not to say that that's going to solve the problem for Texas. Same thing for Oregon. People talk about the Phil Knight part of things and the Nike money. That for sure helps, but you still have to put the money in the right place and still bring the right guys into your system and make sure those guys do what they are supposed to do when they get to your system. So I think maybe as important as that, Dan Lanning and his relationship with Marshall Malchow, he trusts him with everything. I mean, with everything. Like, whenever you're not having to worry about the personnel side of things and evaluation and are we recruiting the right guys, all those things, it frees Dan Lanning up to do what he was hired to do, which is coach football, which is recruit and set the culture, all those things. Like whenever you don't have to worry about the stuff that maybe isn't on your job description, just in any business, athlete, coach, 9-to-5 job, you know how much better that makes you at your own job? Like Michael Jordan not having to worry about rebounding because of Dennis Rodman. Now, Michael Jordan would rebound for you, but because Dennis Rodman's out here getting 20 boards a game, you know how much better that probably made him at the other parts of his game? That to me is a lofty comp, but I think that's the comp here. You talk about Lanning and Malco, Jordan and Rodman. So take that as you will. One more thing I'll add here. The way that Marshall Malchow, going back to his perception in the industry and how people talk about him, because he doesn't want to talk about himself, not a lot of self-promotion from one Marshall Malchow. You can tell a lot about an employee by who else has hired or maybe wants to hire you. Like, look at who Marshall Malchow has worked for. Names like Saban, Kirby Smart, Jimbo Fisher when they were reeling off tremendous recruiting classes at Texas A&M. All those things are parts of Marshall Malchow's story, and then Dan Lanning chooses now to bring him with him over to Oregon. Says a lot about the caliber of person Marshall Malchow is, and also, quite frankly, how good his job is. So all that's to say now, they are in very good shape here in the future, is Oregon football. Yes, because of the Nike part of this with the NIL. Yes, because of the brand. Yes, because of on-field success. But because of the Tier 1 teams, Marshall Malchow is going to be able to, I think, have a higher hit rate than some of the other teams that Oregon's trying to pass and will pass here in the future as Oregon continues to ascend in what modern college football is. So let me know your thoughts on this. Oregon fans, make sure you're subscribed. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.